Kia ora, it's Jeremy here. I'm jumping in before this latest episode to let you know that we are going to discuss the deaths and kills in the Final Destination series with great gleeful abandon, including some very specific details and descriptions. So look, if that's not your vibe, then I would just skip this episode. However, if you are interested and keen to hear how much we love the Final Destination series, grisly bits and all, then sit back, relax, and enjoy the latest episode of Cinema in Context. Kia ora and welcome to Cinema in Context, where we discuss all things film and the connections between. My name is Jeremy Downing.
I'm Sarah Watt.
And I'm William Chen.
And each month at Cinema in Context, we discuss two films, one current and one retrospective, with some connection. It could be the same actor, the same director, or a similar theme. This month, we are discussing Final Destination, which came out 25 years ago in the year 2000, and Final Destination Bloodlines, which came out this year, 2025. See, that's how maths works. 2025,
That's
25
good.
years
Oh,
ago.
Yeah.
The connection being they are both from the same horror film franchise.
Yeah.
And I think it's fair to say we will be discussing the entirety of the series.
Yeah.
Final Destination Bloodlines is the sixth film. And, you know, there's a lot of deaths and thrills and spills.
And we're going to go through each death one by one.
And rank them.
Yes.
Hey, I have a list. I have a list.
Okay.
More on that soon. So
Yeah.
if you don't want the Final Destination film spoiled, pause this episode and come back to it at a future date. Look, there are spoils to be had, but also the films are so much fun.
Yes.
I guess you can decide how important it is to not be spoiled.
Yeah.
All right, Sarah, give us an overview of the original Final Destination.
Final Destination came out in 2000, as you say, Jeremy, directed by James Wong. And it is, to my mind, the innovative story of a group of school students, the main one of which played by Devon Sawa, whose name is Alex. They're going on a trip on an aeroplane to Paris for a school trip. He has a premonition that the plane's going to crash, jumps off the plane. A few come with him. The plane actually crashes in real life. The kids don't understand why they were spared until all of a sudden, each of them starts being knocked off one by death.
Kids and a teacher.
Yes.
Yeah, teacher gets caught up in the mix as well.
That's right.
Poor teacher.
Which
as
just goes to
teachers,
show.
don't go on trips with
That's
students.
right.
Because they ruin your life.
That's right.
All right, William, give us an overview of Final Destination Bloodlines.
25 years later, it turns out that death still doesn't like to be cheated. With a litany of, I guess, so-called, what do they call it, legacy sequels? This is the latest in the line of bring back a franchise that's been dormant for a while. I think Final Destination 5 came out maybe 14 years ago, around then.
I think the gap between this one and the last one is more than the span of the first
five.
five.
Yeah.
Oh my
and the
gosh.
first five were called 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whereas this one gets its own proper.
4 was the weird one. 4 was the Final Destination.
Oh.
The next one was called Two Destinations.
Then they were like just jokes. Yep.
Tokyo Drift.
Bloodlines.
Yes, so Bloodlines brings us back to this weird world where fate kind of coincides with premonitions of disaster. Except this time, it is a family that is targeted. And when the matriarch of the family dies in grisly circumstances, the family are knocked off one by one as the vengeful spectre of death comes to claim their time.
Excellent. I just thought, imagine a crossover between the Fast and the Furious series and the Final Destination series.
Oh my god.
I mean, tidy up your cast of Fast and the Furious.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, I don't think that's possible because the cast of Fast and Furious are, as we've seen in the movies, immortal.
And also, but they are family.
Yeah.
That's true.
That's true.
That's true.
And there was that conversation for a while that the third 21 Jump Street film was going to be a crossover with
Men in Black, yeah.
Which is such a fun idea. Oh, Sarah's face.
Oh dear.
I think it's
Leave it
great.
alone.
Well,
Anyway.
Well, crew, can I jump in and say that I had never seen a Final Destination film? I am of the age where I should have seen a Final Destination film. I remember my friends watching it. I actually spoke to my sister, after preparing for this episode and said, I remember when you watched Final Destination 3, and she was like, I'm still traumatized by that
Yeah.
movie. She won't ever go into a sunbed, probably for health reasons anyway, but also, doesn't want to be unexpectedly cremated by Slushy. And so I sort of
You
thought...
watched them in order?
I watched them in order, but I thought about whether I would just go to the new one completely fresh.
Right.
And then go back and just watch the first one to kind of see where it all started.
Yeah.
But my friend that I went with was like, no, you've got to watch them all. There's lots of connections.
Yeah.
So over a 2-day period, whilst working full time,
Yeah.
I watched the entirety of the series. So
Yeah.
I did the first three movies on a Wednesday night.
Okay.
And then I did the next 2 on a Thursday night. And then
Dang.
went to the 6th one on a Friday night.
Amazing.
And so I just lavished in
Yeah.
the Final Destination world. And I have a little bit of a spiel to share with you. Would you like to hear it?
Yes.
Okay,
Please.
so this is really a celebration or a warning of health and safety.
Yes.
So I think we need to be really careful of electrical wiring in our homes. Liquid over electronics, it seems to be a common thread. Secure all flammable liquid because there's a lot of falling containers and barrels. Any machinery needs to be unplugged. Wear your seatbelt or don't wear your seatbelt,
dear.
depending on the way that the death imagines. Look both ways when you cross the street. Maintenance and protocols, especially for hydraulic fluid, for screws in walls, looking after different parts of the building, wobbly shelving, scaffolding, machines that can overheat. I think we need to be really careful about checking these machines regularly. Spa beds,
Large magnets.
large magnets. I've got MRI
Oh,
here.
yeah.
Laser eye machines.
Oh,
Yeah.
dear.
And, again, health and safety, we need to be checking and quickly cleaning up liquids on the floor.
Yes.
Headphones while driving.
Yes.
Miners using high hazard machinery and working in high hazard places. Wildlife around construction. I mean, this
is amazing.
This is effectively a feature-length full saga of the Fruity Bars ad,
Yeah.
circa
No!
New Zealand,
Yeah.
early 2000s.
Ladies and gents, if you have not seen the Fruity Bars ad, or actually any of the ACC ads from, what was it, around 95 to 2002?
Yeah.
They are all on YouTube. I've shown my students these ads, and they have been both delighted and horrified.
Yeah.
They're pretty much a sequence from Final Destination. I keep
It's
wanting
one
to
big
say Fast and
PSA, isn't
Yes.
it?
Furious. Yeah.
Look, Jeremy, I'm glad that you read the list out, but I hate to tell you, I'm not surprised by any of it. Partly because I was a Girl Guide all the way through to 18. And not only is the Girl Guide motto, be prepared, but I fared very well in my safety in the home badge. And I also grew up with an engineering father who could spot a home disaster at 100 paces, to the extent that when mobile phones first became a thing, he had one of those big brick mobile phones. When he charged it overnight, he would put it on a brick on top of the kitchen counter so that if it overheated, it didn't sort of burn into the counter and set the house on fire.
Brilliant.
So it's in my genes to look out for all of these issues. And I've got to say, going right back to the very first Final Destination, which is the one that I saw contemporaneously and remember the best, I always remember the poor fellow getting garroted by the clothesline or the shower line. But it was because all of those shampoo containers leaked onto the bath and he was unable to stand up straight. I have never forgotten that. And I am very, very careful in bathrooms around floors and around sticky, goopy mess. So I'm just saying, if you don't know these things, you bring it upon yourself.
Well, it's very, very funny that all of this has actually affected real world behavior. You talk to a whole generation of people who grew up around Final Destination 2, and you see a logging truck, you do not drive behind that logging truck.
Yeah, right.
And it happened down in the South Island. One of those logging trucks came loose and I think actually killed somebody.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So it does happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I agree with you. I was watching lots of those deaths going, they deserve it.
Yeah.
You put the thing next to... I mean,
That's
when
right.
There's like is it in the is it in the fourth or the fifth one where someone gets a massage? I think it's the fifth one, and there's
The acupuncture needles?
the acupuncture needles, but there's like some sort of cloth under a flame, and I'm like, well,
there you go.
you're just asking
Exactly.
to be burned alive, aren't
Yeah.
you? Not that it's his fault necessarily; it's the staff member's fault. But gosh,
So let me ask you. I saw one, possibly saw two. Don't really remember. May or may not have seen 3 or 4. Don't know. But I definitely really loved Bloodlines. How many have you seen, William? All of them?
I've seen all of them, but Bloodlines was the first one I saw on the big screen. Yeah, so I grew up with these movies, but they were always, somewhere. They were always on. I remember the first Final Destination was during the St. Cuthbert's Ball. And so my date, her younger brother, had watched the movie on that night. So when her parents came to pick us up, he was bawling his eyes out.
Yeah, right.
And then the second one was always on HBO and other cable channels. So I've seen the censored version of the second one more times than I can remember. But Bloodlines was the very first time you got to see the gore and the spectacle on the big screen.
Well, the reason I ask is because when we were in our little group chat, and we didn't talk about this very much at all, I did not fill in the gaps. I saw 5 for the first time. I saw 1 again, to do my homework, and I didn't watch the middle ones.
when you say 5, do you mean 6?
Sorry, I do mean 6.
Yeah,
I do
okay.
mean 6. And Jeremy, you said something like, when that little boy gets hit by the falling pane of glass, lol, sort of thing. And I very nearly came back and went, actually, I think it was the piano that killed him. And then I went, wait, Jeremy hasn't seen the last one yet.
Yeah.
And I went, oh my gosh. So there were obviously callbacks to other, because, can we agree that one of the, and if you'll forgive me, listeners, viewers, watchers, for saying the most delightful deaths, that little boy in Bloodlines had it coming. Oh my God. He had it coming.
So apparently in screenings, people stood up and cheered
I
when
bet,
he got it.
because he was so annoying, and he deserved it. And you thought he was
killed
gonna,
everyone.
You thought he was going to get away with it, and then boom, the piano. So it was so funny. But I didn't. So I was like,
I was listening to an interview with the directors of Bloodlines. So that is Adam Stein and Zach Lipovsky, who one of their first features together was the Kim Possible live action movie for the Disney Channel.
Oh my gosh.
And now it's incredible their story about how they got this movie. Have you guys read
No,
about
can you tell us?
I don't think so.
I'm curious because, like we mentioned, it's 14 years after the last one, which is longer than the whole run of the series. So what
So
happened?
apparently New Line were gearing up for another Final Destination in about 2018. And it was all going to be about first responders. And so a number of first responders get knocked off one by one at the horrific scenes they arrive at. And then COVID happens and you start to realize,
you cannot be
this is not a good
messing
thing.
with first responders. Yeah.
And so these guys signed up. I think they said they were selected from a group of about 200 prospective directors.
Really?
And so when they got to the final process, how they actually got the job was they were in a Zoom meeting with the execs, and they pre-filmed a Zoom background where during the meeting, a fire started in the back of their office, and they went to get fire extinguishers, and everything goes haywire, and it ends up with a ceiling fan falling on their heads and decapitating both of them. And that's how they got the job.
Oh, that's
So
amazing.
were they tasked with directing a pre-written script or coming up with the script?
The idea was there. So the producer is John Watts, who directed the new Spider-Man movies.
Yeah.
And so he's a huge Final Destination fan. And he kind of had the idea of the whole family aspect.
Great.
And then they were trying to find directors.
Great.
Yeah.
Can I say, I love that, and I think what a great way to get it. And it makes me think of a friend of mine, and he was in a work meeting during the COVID times, and he'd pre-recorded a video of his room, so it looked exactly the same, but of him pottering around in the background.
Oh, yeah.
So he was a duplicate, and just kind of waited for people to figure out that he was.
That's so cool.
That's awesome.
But watching the whole series in quick succession, and I guess I can't help but compare this to the Scream series because
Yes.
Scream would have influenced.
Oh,
we've got the
undoubtedly.
I know what you
You've
did
got
last summer coming
characters
up.
coming back, and
Yeah.
knowing what's happened in previous films.
So Scream is a huge influence on this. But watching the whole series, very fast, it was quite interesting to me how nebulous the lore is. Like, it's not very clear what the rules are.
Yeah.
And the Bloodlines film really puts a stake in the ground and knows its previous films to say there's only a couple of ways that we've bet this, and it's because different movies have had different things going on.
And Bloodlines does it really well, doesn't it?
Does it really well.
I think
that whole follow the genetic line is genius.
It's such a
and
good idea.
then to have the most amazing aspect where, despite that incredible scene in the tattoo parlor, he doesn't die. And you're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And then it's like, because, I mean, it's just absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
It knows what the formula is. It's made by super fans, and they know what gets fans ticking, right?
Yeah.
Kind of the expectation. Also, when the guy, that guy who just survived, he's crossing the road.
Yeah.
And I was like peering over my hands. It's like, it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Here it comes. And it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And like, oh, we are in uncharted waters here.
Well, even they actually, to be fair, prior to that, when they've got the garden party, I don't remember the other films being quite so clever at build-ups, as the kids used to say. You know,
it was brilliant
the whole
with
kind
with the
of
glass
the ice
and
and the
oh.
glass and
the scenes of people crunching down the ice.
absolutely,
It's like
and
it's
the
like
poof
a-
of the
yeah,
barbecue, and then all of a sudden, the nice dad who you didn't expect anything to go wrong.
Well, you know that part with the daughter first, though, coughing.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, that's
Oh, there's
right.
a bug.
That's right. And then
Yeah.
he gets munched by a
Lawnmower.
Well, you know, it's incredibly clever at subverting your expectations.
Yeah. I have to say, this new one is by far the best and most well-made film. The second one is, I had the most fun in the second one. It has a sense of humour and it knows what it's doing.
Yeah,
but it's
right.
still very schlocky. Whereas this latest one was that, plus just being great storytelling.
Yeah. The first one's very earnest.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
And the
Because-
third one's quite earnest as well.
Yeah.
Which
Because
is James Wong, I think.
Exactly.
Right.
The team comes back.
Right.
And the second and fourth are directed by oh gosh.
Alice? What's his name? Alice, is it?
Yes. I
And
have to look it up.
what's he
Yes.
done before?
He was a stuntman.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The second one is wonderful. It's so much
Okay.
fun. The fourth one is not very good.
Yeah.
It's sort of a little bit boring.
Yeah.
Um,
And what about the fifth?
the fifth one's great.
Oh, yeah.
Is it?
Fifth one's really good. I would say fifth one's, you know, the sort of the second, the fifth, and the latest one are sort of the creme de la
Great.
creme.
But I
Sorry,
did really...
sorry. David R. Ellis.
That's-
Yes.
Okay,
There we go.
but I really appreciated the first one, and I know I've said this a trillion times on our 7 going on 8 years of podcasting, but as you know, I really admire Nightmare on Elm Street because it is so accessible, because we all have to fall asleep. I really admire the Final Destination premise because, not because we're all gonna die, because obviously everyone in a horror movie is going to die, but because they are such straightforward mishaps that could happen. And I absolutely love the universality of that, you see. So I thought the first one was great the first time round. This time round, I guess it's just because it's 25 years old, they don't make films quite like that anymore. It's a little bit turgid. It's a little bit earnest. The clothes are awful because they've just come out of the 1990s. But you know what I mean. But it's still a great premise, isn't it? And the fact that he works out that, again, subverting expectations, he works out in the seat plan how the person's going to die and then realizes, but I didn't change seats, or they did, or whatever. I love that
Can we ruin
stuff.
the fifth movie for you?
Yeah.
So at the big event is a bridge collapsing.
Okay.
And it's the same kind of formula, and they're working their way through the bridge collapsing. And then the final two characters, they cheat death because somehow, I can't remember. And the final scene is them getting on a plane to Paris.
No.
And it turns out the whole film
It's a
is the
prequel.
And it's the plane that...
Yeah.
And oh my...
And they
that's
die.
amazing.
And there's a shot where they're looking over at the kids having a ruckus from the first movie.
In the airport.
Yes.
No, in the plane.
In the plane.
Oh.
And so they play the footage from the POV.
Wow.
And then they kind of do the reverse shot of the kids, you know, played by body
Yeah.
doubles, of the new characters standing there.
Oh, that's amazing. I might
so
have seen that.
great.
I might have seen that. That is so rewarding.
And then you realise, oh my gosh, the whole time. But the thing, and I guess we'll get to the Tony Todd of it all soon,
Yes.
but he has a comment in that film, because I love him coming back and over and over again. He has a comment in the film where he goes, you know, this has happened before. And in the end, I was like...
In
well,
which
that
one? In
the
5?
fifth one. But then
Yeah.
but it hasn't happened before because,
This is the
because
first.
it's a prequel.
Yeah.
And then Bloodlines solves that.
Why?
Right?
How?
He was the OG, he was the little boy.
Because the whole story of
Yeah.
Tony Todd, he's seen it happen through
Of course.
all the thing, you know?
Since 1965
Yeah.
or whenever the...
So Bloodlines did a lot of tidy up of the law. They
it
really...
really did.
Yeah.
Talk about Tony Todd.
Well, I guess before we talk about Tony Todd, one of the things that stood out to me was the Candyman of it all from the first one. And I think James Wong knows his references because it comes back again in the third one very strongly, especially with the final sequence on the train, which kind of saves that film, I think. I was getting very big Candyman vibes. The filming, the colours, the music is so good in the first couple films.
Really orchestral.
Yeah, and then when he appeared as the mortician, I was just applauding. And he's just there because he's Candyman.
Yeah.
Hey,
Well,
and he's not in all of them, but he does pop up every now and
No,
again.
he is. He's in all of them.
I think he's a voice in 3. I remember.
Yeah, but he's not in 4
okay.
or 5.
okay.
I don't think he's in 5.
Are you sure?
I
thought
think
I
he-
saw
Oh yeah,
is
I
in
just
five.
said
He
it.
is
I
in
just
five.
said it.
Yeah.
Yeah. 4 is
Yeah.
one he's not in.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the final farewell for Tony Todd was, I got a little bit choked up. It was really nice.
And then they dedicated the film to him.
And then when he leaves, it's like, good luck. And you have the Candyman whistle. Like, oh, they know what they're doing.
Well, you know that they just said to him, "You just say whatever you want to say to your fans."
Oh.
So they let him
Nice.
just say, and he said that whole thing about enjoying life, and
Did he know he was dying?
Yeah.
he was very unwell.
Yes,
You can
yes.
see in the film that
Yes.
he is not healthy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I wasn't sure if he was going to be in it because he died a while ago now, and I was thinking, I wonder if he got in that final film. And what a great send off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Marvelous, eh? I mean, I know that Tony Todd has done a few other things, but mainly known for Candyman, and as we've discussed, he was in the both of them, wasn't he? When we discussed Candyman the other day?
The both of them?
Was he in the remake?
I think he was in the remake, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if we talked about the remake in that chat.
Oh, we didn't?
Well, we compared it to Beetlejuice, right?
Oh, okay. Anyway, but imagine. See, I thought this with the Mission Impossible films that we were watching. So where we've seen the latest one, gone back to number 1, working our way through. Anyway, to me, the relevance being Ving Rhames turns up in the first Mission Impossible film, which was around 1995, 96. Yes, so it was right on the heels of Pulp Fiction. And who knew that he was then going to have 30 years worth of being called back for every Mission Impossible film?
Yeah.
So, it's not quite the same, but how nice for Tony Todd to have this whole, not 30 years, I guess,
Because-
or 25 years of coming back to do the Final Destination films.
In the first one, it's just such a random scene. They hide in a coffin. They burst out. It's like, oh, look, we're in the morgue, I guess.
They break into the morgue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Tony Todd's just this random dude who comes out, says some darkly Candyman
Very
stuff.
spooky, like as if he's death.
Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah.
And what's he say is like, I'll be singing you or something.
He is a stand-in for death. I mean,
Yeah.
the thing that's interesting about this franchise is that there is no notable antagonist.
Yeah.
Like, death
Yeah.
is this sort of nebulous thing. And I guess, again, I said it before, but the films clearly were just making it up as they went along. And this latest one did a really good job of setting it down. And when the moment that little boy appears in the Skyview restaurant, I was like, oh, that's the mortician guy.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
So it's
me
just
too.
like, there's a significance here of this kid, and like the timeline works. And
I think it's very interesting what you say about death being sort of a nebulous antagonist, because in Final Destination 1, when my friend goes into the bathroom, you know how the toilet bowl leaks and that fluid comes out, but then that fluid retracts and makes itself scarce
That's right.
before the investigators come in, which is intensely insidious, because that suddenly does give death this character, because it's like it's doing something tricky on purpose. Also, the way that it goes along the tiles and he walks and then it moves to where he's going. That was very cleverly done.
Do you know how they did that? I was watching a video on YouTube with the producers
Do they
talking.
tip
They
a-
did.
they
The
tip
whole
a
thing
bit
was
of-
like one of those marble games.
Right.
And so the whole set was on a small gimbal.
Right.
So clever.
wow.
But that was clever also, because it meant that you couldn't just go, we couldn't, because we're watching the film, we can't just go, oh, well, it might have just been a terrible accident, because there is that insidious intentionality in it that, of course, is removed so that investigators go, it looks like it was just a terrible accident, or, he committed suicide or whatever. That's super clever. And then, of course, in Bloodlines, when she's shouting at the wind, Don't you even think about it, and all that kind of
I think
thing.
it gave me huge The Happening vibes.
Right,
Yeah,
and that's
true.
so true. And so that is clever in a way that, and I'm sorry to talk about Mission Impossible, but it's very of the now. I know you're not watching the latest ones at all, Jeremy, but AI is the antagonist. And I think that, there is a discussion to be had around how you use a nebulous antagonist effectively or not. You know what I mean? And I think that Final Destination does it really well.
Well, it does it really well because it gives them license to do a whole range of stuff.
Yes.
And also they've got Tony Todd there to be the creepy mortician that says things that don't really make sense.
Yeah. But they do make death a little bit of a character, like it's doing things on purpose. Not just woohoo.
Especially in the first one, they have all the shots of a shadow going across the
Yes,
mirror.
that's
Yeah,
right.
that's
They
right.
do.
The
They
kettle.
do. Do they not do that in 2, 3, 4, 5 Bloodlines?
The first one and the first death you're talking of, speaking of, yes, I think that's the only time where it's not an accident, where there's a intentional change in the environment, and then the toilet bowl kind of sucks back in. I don't think you see that ever again. So yeah, maybe that's like a first installment figuring stuff.
But you
out.
do in Bloodlines with the lamp twisting in the wind. The wind.
It's the wind, right?
Yeah, but
The wind, Sarah. It's interesting as well how the premonitions work in each of the films because, the first one, he has that premonition and then he sort of gets physical clues. So he gets like a piece of a magazine or that's kind of how he finds out stuff. The second one,
that says Todd.
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
I think the second one, there's no additional premonitions. She just kind of.
Oh, no,
she
this
sees like the shadows
Yes.
and
Not like the pigeons.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's right. The third one, it's really hokey.
I quite like the third one.
Oh no, not the third one. I like the third one. The
The
photographs.
Polaroids, yeah.
Yeah, no, I really like the third one. It's the fourth one. There was like the 3D one. So there's like these really hokey visions of like the key elements from like a computer game sort of moving towards the screen in 3D.
Yeah.
3D snakes snapping.
Does
at
it
you.
work if you're just watching it on the telly?
No, it's really dumb.
And I think if we had seen it in 3D, it'd be pretty dumb as well.
Yeah. And then the fifth one, I don't think there's any premonitions. They just have the initial one. And then I really love this latest one where it's not even her premonition, it's her grandmother's. And it's like, why is she having this
Well, no, that
premonition? It was great.
Well, no, that to me is a plot weirdness. Why? Oh, I've suddenly been waking up for the last 2 months in the middle of the night. So, I'm like, well, hang on a second. Why 2 months
Mum's
ago?
coming close to dying, maybe, and she's the end of the bloodline.
Grandma is.
Your grandma is, sorry. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. They don't say that, do
If
they?
That's the only question you have in the series, Sarah.
Yes.
You're doing good.
Yeah, I believe everything else. Entirely
watertight.
plausible. Entirely plausible. But hold on just a second.
Can I go over my list of deaths?
Oh,
What?
yeah.
Wait, you've had more?
Well, list of my rankings of the
Oh,
deaths.
okay. Yeah, I thought that you had more ways of dying.
Dumb ways to die. Okay, so of the original 5 films, I'll go. Shall I go in reverse order? Is that
Okay,
fun?
go for it.
So I think it's the second one. There's a drive-through sequence where the two leads are stuck in a drive-through.
The third one.
Third one.
Yes.
Yeah, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, and they have to get out quickly, and a car rams into another car, and there's a propeller within the motor that shaves off
Oh
the back
my
of the guy's
gosh.
head, who turns out to be one of the people that was supposed to die.
Can I just say, can you imagine being in the writer's room? This would be the most exhilarating film franchise
Oh,
to write
yeah.
for.
And it's
Just
really
to
hard.
come up with the ideas.
Apparently, they really struggle. They really struggle to come up with these.
I
death
could come up with
ideas.
the ideas because I'm the daughter of a hyperactive engineer and a girl guide. Okay, anyway, yep.
So that's number 3. I think the start of number 2 with the log going through the policeman's head is
Oh my
pretty
gosh.
incredible because it's so shocking. It comes
Yeah.
straight out the gate. Excuse the pun. Number 3 as well, the airbag death. So one of the characters is stuck in her car with something sticking out the back of her chair, but she's sitting there waiting to be saved, and then an airbag goes off and her whole
Oh
head gets
no!
rammed into
Oh,
the
that's clever.
back of the
Yeah.
pole. I think it's a perspex plastic.
Yeah,
pole.
yeah.
Number 5 has a young woman doing gymnastics, and a series of events sets off smoke.
A tiny screw.
Yeah, a tiny screw.
And then it's chalk.
chalk.
Yes.
And she loses grip, does quadruple black backflips, and breaks all of her bones in a clump on the ground.
Oh dear.
It's amazing. And her head's sticking out in the wrong way compared to her legs.
Yeah.
Can we please put an advisory on the beginning of this episode? Like, seriously.
We're like excited about it. But that's the joy of the series.
No,
though,
I know
right?
it is,
the
but let's
deaths.
put an advisory on just in case.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the absolute creme de la creme, which you've mentioned already, Sarah, is the dentist kid running out to pigeons.
Pigeon boy.
A flat pane of glass falling on him, and him just being completely crushed into a
Like
bloody,
a sandwich.
just like a bloody blob of goop.
Like going, so it falls
Doesn't
Flat.
break.
horizontally.
Yeah, it doesn't
Yes.
break.
So it's a little bit like being a specimen in a
you,
lab.
Exactly.
you see the dummy kind of fold in half, and the legs crumple, and it's amazing.
Dear.
It's very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do have some top 5 from the latest film as well that rival it. But
I'll tell you my
Yeah.
top deaths. Yes, so a lot of the same deaths. Gymnast, so good, and I think it's one of those Final Destination setups where you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Right. So what happens here at the beginning of the sequence? A little screw falls off from a ceiling fan and falls on a balance beam, point side up.
Of course.
Yes. And so for the whole thing, the camera is it's so focused on that screw, and she's doing her routine and narrowly missing the screw just by inches. And you're like, oh my God, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? And it's not the screw that kills her.
No.
Right? It's such
well,
a good
the
fake-up.
the screw ends up coming into play. I mean, that's the challenge. I'm loving this, and I think that film really introduced that idea that influenced the sixth film, where it's kind of all these different.
And it
setups.
isn't
Yeah.
the thing that you think it's going
That's
to be.
right. You still need those things to be there, otherwise, why are they there?
Yeah.
Rather than just being a red
Of
herring.
course, of course.
And so another woman, another girl, she
Steps on the screw, knocks over the chalk. The chalk gets blown by a fan into the face of the high bars. And then, yes, stuff happens. I really like Spaghetti Death from part 2, where the guy in his apartment throws the spaghetti out the window, and it's like, oh, okay, well, okay. And then all sorts of horrible stuff starts happening in his apartment. His hand gets stuck in a food disposal, and you see
Yeah.
the blades.
Yeah.
A magnet falls into his takeaway box, and the whole microwave explodes in flames. He narrowly escapes, runs down the fire escape. Everything's okay. He slips on the spaghetti, and the fire escape comes down into his eye.
No. It's like the whole thing. I don't mean to be pretending to be highfalutin.
Yeah.
It's Hitchcock's brilliant. You don't have a bomb go off without having shown the audience the bomb ticking under the table. You've got to do that to build the build, the build, the build. And that's what's so wonderful about these films is it's build, 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 change. Yeah.
And then
And maybe come back.
that's
Yeah.
the thing, right? Sometimes it happens, and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
I read an amazing thing somewhere. I can't remember where. Sorry. But they were talking about how the slasher in the Final Destination movies is really just the director, right? It's death by insert shot.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
Like, because there is no physical presence, it's all about the camera moves and what you focus on, and how you produce this narrative of death
Yes.
just through cinematography alone.
Yeah, and all those little details, like, it's so
Yeah.
clever.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, I mean, my top ones, I mean, we've talked about the piano falling on the kid. Just
That's just for
chef's-
satisfaction.
chef's kiss.
Yeah. And
What
also
a
because he
great-
runs out and he looks like, yay, I made it.
What's he say? He's like, hey,
Yes, he does. He goes, and then cuckoo.
It's so good.
Yeah.
I think the final 2 logs crushing the leaves. Great callback
To part two.
And just the gore of it,
Yeah.
and the futility of it.
It's so nonplussed. It's like, blip, blip, credits.
Yeah.
That is that at the end of number 1.
That's number 2 is the log truck.
Yes,
and that's
so-
the end of number 6.
Yeah.
Wait, hang
The
on.
two people being crushed by the logs is
Yeah,
the
I
end
do-
of Bloodlines.
Oh, is it the end of Bloodlines? I couldn't remember which one. Okay,
The big train
Yeah,
pile up, and
yeah.
then the truck pops over and
Yeah.
the 2 logs.
Oh, how funny.
Like, honestly, me and my buddy, we burst into applause, and the whole audience we were just laughing to the
Yeah.
whole thing. I think the head being crushed in half by the garbage.
Yeah.
Holy
compressor
cow.
was like we just were gleefully
Yeah.
clapping.
It looks like the Total Recall face.
Yeah,
Oh, with the eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They must have maybe some practical effects in there. Do you think?
It must be. It looked really good.
Yeah.
I love that setup where it's all out of focus in the background.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she goes through the whole thing, and it happens exactly the way
I
it's
thought they were
described.
going to pull away from that shot, and they didn't. And I'm like, I can't believe we're still looking.
Of course, this movie had the book, didn't it, that helped with her figuring everything out, which is a great kind of Evil
And they
Dead
thought
reference.
that the guy, the son, the brother or whatever,
Yeah.
the adopted brother, was going to get smushed by the garbage truck. But then she falls into the thing, gets popped in.
Yeah.
Just holding the arm. It's so good. I like when they go there.
And it just that death just goes full Looney Tunes.
Yeah.
Like the I guess it's a computer graphic of a soccer ball hitting.
Yeah.
No, whoop, into the rubbish bin.
Okay, my other beef is, in that film, in Bloodlines, people are losing people close to them quite quickly, but they don't look very distressed for very long. Then all of a sudden, they're in the lounge again, sitting around, apart from the surprisingly good acting one, who's that blonde fellow who was the real brother.
yeah.
There were some great actors in this film.
No,
The
but
acting
I
overall
thought he was
fantastic.
going to be useless, and he turned out to be quite an effective character.
Yeah.
And then they're all sitting around, and they're all like, "Oh, who's going to be next?" Da da da. But they weren't all crying.
The mum and the dad, separate mum, separate dad. They were the only ones that survived this film, aren't they? Because they're not
That's
part
right.
of the Bloodlines.
That's right.
Oh yeah,
Family.
yeah.
Well, it's funny because in that interview with the directors, they were talking about Final Destination's "Who's Next" problem, which is exactly what you were saying. Because in the first one, what's her name, the girlfriend character, Terry.
Yeah.
When she gets hit by the bus.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, "Whoa!"
I remember that from the first
And
one in
then
the cinema.
You smash cut to like a Alka-Seltzer
Yeah.
cup, and then Devon Sawa was just like, "Oh, my tummy hurts." Like, they don't care. Their friend was just
No, I
smashed by
know.
the bus.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Next kill, please, next kill.
Yeah, it's true.
And what they were trying to do with having everyone be related was that the characters would care more about who is next. And there was more of an emotional connection there. At least that was the intent.
Yeah.
I thought the brother was a really good actor as well. The younger brother of...
Oh, yeah.
The blonde one, the dark-haired one who was the adoptee
No, the main character's brother.
in Bloodlines.
Yeah, Bloodlines. He's one of the two that got crushed by the log. Gosh,
the kid.
Yes, where did you see it? It's hard to see.
I can't remember.
Can I say though that my top kill of this film and
Of Bloodlines or of the
Bloodlines,
franchise?
well,
Oh,
not
yeah.
Bloodlines. I still think Dentist Boy is up there. is the one that when death gets messy.
Oh
And-
my god.
And it's the fact that he gets sucked into an MRI.
Oh,
you
yes,
know,
that was
and
very, very
broken
clever.
backwards.
Backwards.
But also the visual gag of his nipples being pulled forward and then his penis being
Yeah,
pulled forward.
yeah,
It was
yeah,
so funny.
Yes.
That was wonderful. And then the kind of just the mash of his gore and then his head and his feet still sticking out of the MRI machine.
Yeah.
And the spokes of the wheelchair wheel kind of going through
Yes,
his t-shirt.
yes.
Wow.
Very cleverly done.
Wow.
Yeah. And then they made that character like he was a bit of a dick, but he was quite likable as well.
Yeah, he loved his brother. He wanted to save his life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I so saw that spring though
Oh,
going
yeah.
through the brother. That was
Yeah.
yeah. Anyways, those are my top kills. I had a great time
Yeah.
listing those after the fact.
And
really
it's,
good.
It's really funny because, Sarah, you say the first one is very serious, very melodramatic, very turgid, which I
Very
think is
goth,
a
that
great
Ali
word.
Larter character.
Oh, Ali
is
Larter.
she's the Christian Slater of Heathers.
Her name is Clear Waters.
I
Spelled
know.
Clear.
I
There's
know.
this weird connection to Clear Waters and Clear things throughout the series.
Yeah.
Clear Rivers, is it?
What?
Because the
Clear
hospital,
Rivers?
right?
What's her
It's
name?
called
Clear Rivers. Sorry,
Yeah.
Clear Rivers.
Yeah.
Interesting.
What a terrible name.
Yeah.
And again, I just love seeing a young Ali Larter in this because she goes on to do like the Resident Evil movies and Heroes.
Yeah.
But what is her character? She's super gothy. She's an artist. She
She's-
creates sculptures of her feelings.
Doesn't she go all flash dance and put the old the visor on to do like soldering and things like that?
So the
Because she
second-
was orphaned.
The second movie, she goes all Sarah Connor.
Yeah.
She's in an institution. And,
She's a survivor.
and then she comes out to help them.
Yeah.
Does
And
she
then
die at the
she
end of
dies,
number 2?
yeah. No, I'm not even at the end. She dies halfway through, isn't she?
Yeah.
But,
But like the first one is such a product of its time. Right?
Yeah.
The whole thing started out as a spec script for X-Files. And then, of course, you have James Wong and Glenn Morgan, who wrote some of the greatest episodes of the X-Files, kind of sign on to do this. And unfortunately, watching it in 2025, it does feel like a TV movie. Everything is just kind of slow. It's very, very foreboding. The acting is so TV acting.
Yeah.
But I think some of that also adds to the charm. It's just very, very different from part 2 onwards, where they realize what audiences really like about it, which is kind of the goofy nature of the kills, and then the campiness and the goofiness and just the wanton violence get amped up every single film afterwards.
You're right about the acting, because not to be unkind to actors who haven't had huge florid careers, but none of those people, Ali Larter may be accepted, and obviously Tony Todd a little bit.
Sean William Scott.
Sean William Scott, actually, playing the Dafty in everything. He goes on to play the Dafty in everything. But other than that, the rest of them, I mean, they've done some stuff, but they haven't become big things.
I mean, the third film, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, she's great. She's very earnest and she cries through most of the movie.
Yeah.
But that's not her fault. She's clearly been directed to do that.
Whereas the Scream movies, by comparison, and admittedly a lot of those characters get to keep on living, but all of the people in Scream, and I mean, obviously apart from the ones who are killed. No, we're talking about the actors, aren't we? Those are big actors who became big actors and continued to be big actors. Even the ones in the latest Scream movies are the young up-and-comers of today. And so, you know, all those kids in Scream, Madison, and you know...
what's her name from Yellow Jackets?
Exactly. Yeah. So they're all going on to have careers in a way that these Final Destination kids, not so much. But it was very 90s acting, the first one.
Oh, yeah.
One thing that I don't know if I appreciated this from a nostalgia perspective. I don't necessarily want to go back there, but when I think about the third and fourth film particularly, it really reminds me of the times when I was working in the video store, and they were your classic... People would get out those movies on DVD. There's a classic DVD kind of film.
Yeah.
And there used to be all of those sort of teen, B-grade movies.
Absolutely.
And there was a huge industry for that.
And at sleepovers, we didn't care that films weren't amazing.
Yeah.
We were there for the kicks, the jollies, if you will.
I mean, that's now on streaming, right? But it's so different. It's a very different way of marketing films.
Yeah.
So there was a sense of like, I remember this. I remember the Final Destination 3 poster with the roller coaster, and I remember the trailers playing on the trailer DVDs that we would have in the video store, and people would come out and people would get really obsessed with the lore, and I've got to see this one's as good as that one, and that one's, and it was quite fun. And that fourth movie, which is just not a great film, it's very clearly of its time, and all the hairstyles are very that sort of late 2000s. But there's something about that I was like, I never thought I'd miss this type of film.
Yeah. We had lower standards because you're right, there were different expectations and it was okay. Whereas Bloodlines feels to me like a film that knows that it is fighting for box office, it is fighting for cinema bums on seats. It needed to be clever, spectacular, it needed to be well acted, memorable, all the things, because it's a proper movie. It is not a straight to DVD thing, and it isn't a streaming thing.
And I think the fifth film starts to feel like that. The fifth film is around the same time that Scream 4 comes out. The quality lifts, and there's an amazing title sequence in that movie, and there's it's got a more of a, so one of the kind of things that happens in the fifth one is that the characters realize that if they kill somebody else,
it'll jump them.
They get to survive, and so one of the characters becomes the villain in the film and starts to try and murder them. And I was like, this is great.
Hang on, that's 4 or 5?
That's 5.
Okay.
So I was like, this is a great introduction. You know, like if this is going to motivate one of your best friends to try and kill you, then that changes the stakes even more. It's a different kind of thing going on, which then of course motivates the leads to put him out of his misery, and they get to survive. Or do they?
But 5's the one where they go on the plane to Paris at the end.
Yes, they don't.
So actually it's a prequel. So way back, the prequel, they figured that out, the whole jumps thing. Do they use that again in 1, 2, 3, or?
They talk, well, not in 1, 2, 3, but they talk about it in the latest one, don't they?
Yeah. And something that stuck out to me...
Wait, I'm sorry. I thought in 1... Sorry. I thought in 1... there was something. Oh, that's if you save someone.
Yes, so
it will jump you.
The bully kid gets saved from the car, and so Sean William Scott gets it instead when they're on the train tracks. So
why? Why?
Yeah, it's not clear.
Because it's like because he cheated fate, so it jumps to the next.
But
again, it's very nebulous.
But again, Alex is the one who saved them, and he gets a messianic complex, doesn't he? But I don't really get that.
But I love the callback to part one, but where Alex is hiding in the cabin with the other mitts, and he's just like...
Which doesn't make sense.
I know.
And it doesn't make sense why the grandmother this cabin, death can't get her.
The cabin, the grandma's cabin, looks like the world's most danger filled.
Yeah.
There's sparks everywhere. There's sharp metal objects.
Like when they were driving in, I'm like, this is like there's like the big barrels and there's the spikes. I'm like, this is just everything could go wrong.
So why then? It's only when she steps outside
And she gets that amazing thing through the back of her head.
Yeah.
I also love the other mother getting squashed by the thing in that place.
Yeah, why is the grandmother in Bloodlines? Why is her house? Is it just that she has complete control over everything that's in
I
it?
guess so.
It's a plot device, I think.
But she has made it really super safe.
Has she?
Yeah.
Why did she put spikes on everything?
Why is there? Was it glasses that were starting to burn
Yeah.
off?
Oh, that was so much fun. Not today, Death.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right.
One thing that I did find interesting was at the end of the third film, it kind of has this wonderful opening with the roller coaster ride. Has some really good deaths in it. And as we mentioned before, the photographs. So that she goes around at the start of the film in the theme park taking photographs of everybody.
Who, the protagonist?
The protagonist.
Played
and
by...
then Mary Elizabeth Weinstein.
Oh, okay.
And then as they start dying, she realizes that all of the photographs she took have clues in them to how they're going to die.
Oh, I love that.
Which is a great visual kind of gag.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense, but it works from a storytelling perspective. And then the end of the film is a bit sort of lackluster. They sort of ended another carnival, I believe, or a fireworks display.
Yeah.
And then there's this sort of flash forward, 6 months later, she's in New York, she's on a train, and then she sees her sister, who's part of the triad of people in danger. If they're ever together, they're in danger. And she's like, what are you doing here? She's like, I'm here for da-da-da. She's like, oh my gosh, this is so weird. And they turn and look, and the guy's there. And he's like, hey, I was here for a thing. And then they go, and they realize that they're going to die. And it's this incredible train crash sequence that is another premonition.
So number 3 is a good one.
Not really, but what was good...
You're really selling all
I know,
of them.
what I'm getting to is the ending was great. It makes no sense, but it's a wonderful ending. Very Candyman with the kind of shots of rats and the camera moving along the train tracks. And I was like, they have so filmed this and after they filmed everything. And sure enough, I went online, and when they showed the film to test audiences, they were really disappointed with the ending. And so you've got this ending that's really visceral and exciting. It makes no sense from a narrative perspective. It's just this tacked on ending. And I think that's what they've done consistently, is they've prioritized audience thrills over logic and lore. And I'm all for it.
The first one, on the DVD of the first Final Destination, there's the original ending, which, oh my god, it is very different. So what happens originally, they realize that the only way to beat death is by creating new life.
Which is what happens in the second one, right? Yes. But then, of course, it doesn't, because Bloodlines undermines all of that.
And so what happens is it turns out that that Alex and Claire had slept together sometime in the movie, and she's pregnant, and as she gives birth, the curse is lifted, and Alex gives was it Alex or Claire who gives a monologue? It's like, at the end of the day, life is what shines through. And the test audiences hated it.
Yeah.
And so they added a entirely new sequence there in Paris. The whole sign falls down.
Oh, it's such a good final moment.
I know.
I also love the one in the fourth one, where the same sort of cheat out happens, where instead of a sign about the guy, it's a truck, I think, coming towards a cafe window, and the 3 leads are in the cafe. And then it cuts to a CGI skeleton version of their deaths in slow motion with the credits rolling. And it's such a great way to do it at the end. It's this, and of course the film opens with a greatest hits of all of the deaths from the first 3 films done in that same style. So it's a good kind of hark back.
Remind me, I never remember the end of films. How does number 1 end? They go back to Paris. The 3 of them go to Paris. He has a premonition of a bus or something like that.
Yeah, they look around, they see the sparking power line, they see the sign loose, he starts to figure it all out.
He says, I'm going back to the hotel, don't come with me. Right?
Yeah.
He goes back to the hotel?
And the other dude,
The bully kid.
the bully guy, pulls him away from a bus that's about to hit him. And he's like, see, we're fine. And then a big sign behind him swoops down,
that's right.
And the camera cuts.
That's
to
right. That's
black.
right. That's brilliant. Brilliant. Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, the 6th one, I was sure that they were going to kill the tortoise, the turtle. right? Because they set it up throughout the movie. It's like, these tortoises live to 100 years. And I thought the final scene was going to be, she has another premonition. She sees all the signs. She's about to die, and she gets the turtle and just steps on it. But I feel like test audiences
wouldn't like that either.
That poor little guy.
Yeah.
All right, let's end with final destination. Final thoughts. Who would like to kick us off?
Well, I would like to be in the writer's room because I do think, not in a gruesome way, not because I wish ill on people, but how fascinating and clever to be able to come up with myriad, I'd love that. It would be so fun. So do you think that there's a way? Should I email them?
I think you should. I think you should create a video where you get decapitated halfway through.
You can have all of these things. Here's Lego. So this is how you would die by Lego and da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
All that. Yeah.
Nice.
Fantastic. I don't have any other thought. I respect this franchise. And I don't even think I feel that bad about the fact that what we're gleefully going gleeful about is people dying because of the nature of how it all is.
Well, I think, like we've said, they kind of deserve it often. They don't deserve to die, but they deserve to have a consequence for holding a vodka over a computer.
Yeah. That's right. Out of a mug. Drinking vodka out of a mug is what I would extrapolate from that, to be honest.
Yeah.
Putting your tea towel on a knife block.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right next to the edge of the thing.
That teacher was annoying.
Well.
She was annoying. Anyway, that's my only thought.
Final Destination 6 was so much fun.
Do you mean Bloodlines?
Bloodlines, yeah. I'm sorry. We're going by Fast and Furious nomenclature here.
I like that it has a proper name. I think Bloodlines is great.
And it actually is relevant, right?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Yeah.
And the word blood's in it. But Final Destination Bloodlines is such a crowd pleaser. My audience was loving it.
Same.
There were laughs, there were gasps. The final sequence with the penny rolling down, you could hear people go, oh.
I saw a TikTok the other day. We're going to see Grandma in her first film, and it's the grandma with the penny, and she's got a photo next to the poster holding the penny.
Nice.
And her name was Penny. No, I don't.
I went to the premiere and they gave us pennies.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, and they went, you might want to hold on to this for later. And do you know what? I'm not even that superstitious. I left mine behind.
Yeah,
I was like, I'm not taking that with me.
But that's how people die.
I was like, I don't remember,
Someone
but
else
I'm
is
going to
going to
leave
pick it up and be like, ooh.
Did you leave it next to a fan, a bench?
Yes.
Yes, so Bloodlines, so much fun, and it's just these guys, the writers, the producers, the directors, they know exactly why
What they're
people go to
doing.
these
Yeah.
movies. They know what they're doing, and they themselves are obviously super fans of the entire franchise. And so it's one of the rare examples where it's, it's made by fans for fans, right? And it's just so much fun. The callbacks, all the expectations. I love the what's his name, Eric, the brother, and how he just does not die because now he's invincible apparently.
And yet he's one of the most annoying people.
Yeah,
and you kind of want him to. You're kind of like,
the
you
bit where
deserve
he's
it.
like, "Whoa, what's going to happen? Is this garbage truck going to crush me?"
Yeah.
So much fun. And then I also love the advertising because the trailer spoils a lot of it, but it doesn't really happen like that in the movie. There's a scene in the trailer of them being stuck in the revolving doors, and in the movie it's really ominous, but it amounts to nothing. There's a scene in the trailer of Eric crossing the road and getting hit by a bus. Fake out, doesn't happen.
That's wonderful. Yeah. I never saw the trailer, so they've set up the expectations that they subverted.
It's very, very
And
cool.
the premonition sets up expectations that are subverted as well, which is clever.
Okay, we haven't even talked
we
about
haven't even talked about it.
They haven't even talked about that. So the dancing on the glass breaking,
Yeah.
I was giggling with terror.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, get off the glass.
And it doesn't wind up going exactly like it was going to go, does it?
And the gas going through the building.
The
and
music, like, no.
Oh,
Yeah.
what a
Oh my
wonderful
God.
sequence.
Oh, it was a wonderful sequence.
And you're confused because you're like, oh, is this movie I actually thought the whole film was going to be set in the 50s or 60s. Yeah.
Oh, and of course the elevator, the poor little elevator kid, and it's like, please sir, we're already. Oh my god.
Yeah.
So good. So
Over
good.
capacity. I'm always terrified
Yeah.
of elevators.
Yeah.
The guy gets bisected. And so, Bloodlines, so much fun. The first one was a blast to just go back to. I haven't seen that movie in ages.
Yeah.
I've seen the second one the most out of all of them because it's the fun one, you know. And the first one is kind of dour and slow in places, but you can definitely see the genesis of these fantastic ideas.
That's what I like.
And it's a movie of its time, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And what actually, transpires is relatively entertaining, and the deaths are still really, really good because that's what you come to these movies for.
Without, in my mind, stooping to the levels of Saw, which I find, those are innovative deaths, but there's something just incredibly nasty about those.
I thought about Saw because I was like, I've seen most of them. I haven't seen the last couple, and I always really enjoy the twists in those films. But I just can't bring myself to watch.
No,
I can't bring myself to watch. Is it torture porn?
It is torture porn, and it's interesting, isn't it? Is it because a human is doing it to them? Or is it anyway horrible? Whereas this is all just accidents. You just have to be a bit more alert.
I think with Saw, I was also thinking of Saw and Fast and Furious, and that how they play with the timelines in these series is really clever.
Yeah, that's the most satisfying stuff with Saw.
Yeah.
So that fifth movie was a very Saw move. You know? Yeah. Well, I had a great time. This is well and truly now in the kind of pantheon of great franchises in my cinema love. I would happily rewatch the series with someone who hadn't watched it before. And the film, this latest movie, is doing well critically. It's like 90-something% on Rotten Tomatoes.
And financially.
Financially, it's doing very well.
Highest gross of any Final Destination movie.
And because we got it a couple of weeks before the States, didn't we? So they're only just had it out for a week now.
Yeah.
So I guess there'll be more to come, and I'll be here for it. And I think watching them in such quick succession, I really got a sense about, okay, this is when it works, this is when it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And the formula for what makes a great Final Destination film was exemplified in the latest one. I thought the pacing was great. I think the kills are almost like an action sequence or a musical sequence, depending on the genre, where you kind of need them in there every so often. But the in-between bits were really fun. And like I said, I thought the acting in this latest one was fantastic.
Yeah.
All the characters, even the annoying sister. I don't even remember how she died. Oh, of course. She dies in a garbage compactor.
Yeah.
She was quite a fun character too.
Yeah.
I thought they did a really, really good job. All right. Well, thank you for listening to another episode of Cinema in Context. If you enjoy our podcast, then please share it with your film-loving friends. You can listen to Cinema in Context on SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and where all great podcasts can be found. You can follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook, which are great places to let us know what you think of this episode, as well as give us suggestions for future films to discuss and compare. Look out for our next episode in a month's time, and until then,
No hora mai!